the trial for stealing the 2016 election. And number one, let's please all reach out to the media whenever they refer to this as the hush money trial or the election interference trial, and say, no, it's the stealing the 2016 election trial. That's what this is about. This is about stealing the 2016 election. Say it after me, repeat after me. Stealing the 2016 election. That's what this trial is about. Stealing it by preventing Americans from learning who Donald Trump really was. Now, in fact, one of the producers on his program who signed a non-disclosure agreement back when they were doing the program, that non-disclosure agreement was apparently like 20 years or something like that, because it just timed out, it just expired. And he has just gone public saying that Trump would routinely refer to black people with the N-word. He would talk about women who worked on the set, the camera people and the floor directors and things like that. If they were overweight, he would say, get them off the set. I don't like looking at fat women. If they were attractive, particularly blonde and blue-eyed, he would say, put that person out there. That's who I want to look at. I mean, this guy is a pig, just a pig. But anyhow, what happens if he's found guilty? Well, first of all, in fact, let me just first off explain the jury unanimity issue. Fox News has been lying about this. Jeff Tiedrich's newsletter this morning over on Substack is brilliant. He just breaks it all down. But a whole series of Fox News programs yesterday were just lying about this. They were saying, well, you know, they gave the jury a bunch of different things that they could find Trump guilty of, and if they find him guilty of any of them, then he's guilty of all of them. Not true. Here's how it works. You know, I find it absolutely bizarre that the actual lawyers on Fox News are lying about what's going on here. But, you know, Fox News and lies are, you know, it's like, of course. But anyway, here's how it works. Trump is charged with falsifying business records. That's the crime that he's been charged with. Now, it's a Class E felony in New York, which means 4 years in prison. Excuse me, it's a Class E misdemeanor, and which has up to 4 years in prison. And here's the deal. The law has been amplified by saying that this goes from being a misdemeanor to being a felony. I think I just got something wrong here. It goes from being a misdemeanor to being a 4-year felony if it was done for the purposes of another crime. Now, the another crime here is trying to influence the 2016 election. It's a violation of both New York state law and federal law. The falsifying business records is the crime that they will find him guilty of or not guilty of, period. Now, in the context of that, there are 3 potential violations of federal law that, you know, Trump could have been trying to conceal. I mentioned that. I mentioned 2 of the 3. Federal campaign finance law, state election finance law, or the tax records law. So, bottom line, the jurors that, yes, he falsified these records. And yes, he did it for the purpose of concealing his affairs to influence the 2016 election. That's all they have to conclude. Now, they have of these 3 things: federal campaign finance law, state election fraud law, or tax records law. They could say he did 1 or 2 or 3 of these, and different jurors could choose different ones. But those are just the pieces of it, essentially. All the jurors, though, have to agree. It has to be unanimous, 100% unanimous, that he did falsify business records. It could be he did it a bunch of different ways. I mean, for example, you know, if a bunch of guys go into a bank to rob the bank, and one guy hands the note and the other guy's holding a gun, the bank was robbed. One guy was doing it with a gun, another guy was doing it with a note, but the bank was robbed. And so when they get convicted of robbing the bank. In this case, the robbing the bank was falsifying business records, which is those checks and you know, and all that kind of stuff. for the purposes of influencing the election. How did he go about doing it? Well, you've got a menu to choose from. There's 3 different ways he could have done it, and possibly even all 3. So anyhow, there's that. So what happens if he gets convicted of falsifying business records in the first degree? That is the Class E felony. That's the 4 years in prison. And, well, first of all, he's unlikely that he's going to go to prison. In all probability, he will be hit with fines or probation or community service or some combination of those. Karen Friedman, who is a former top prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office, she said, "I'd love to see community service, picking up trash in the subway." Yeah, that would be a good one. Put him in one of those orange vests, have him picking up trash. He has inflicted deep harm on our community, on America, by depriving the voting public of their right to cast an informed vote in the highest ranking national election. And, by the way, the falsifying business records is a misdemeanor. And his lawyers could have asked the judge to include in the jury instructions that instead of finding Trump guilty of the felony, going to prison, you can find him guilty of the misdemeanor, falsifying business records, but just, we didn't prove, or the prosecution didn't prove, that he did it to influence the election. He just did it to save his marriage or something like that. But interestingly, weirdly, his lawyers did not ask for that in the jury instructions. So it's not going to be an option. Now, if he is convicted, the prosecutors and the probation office put together a series of proposals, suggestions for punishment to the judge. That process can take up to 6 months. Then after that, Trump will, and then the judge brings him in and issues his sentence. After that, he will immediately appeal, so the punishment will be put on hold. So he won't be showing up in the subways picking up trash any day soon. That could take years. He has 30 days to file a notice of appeal, then he has 6 months to file a full appeal with the First Judicial Department. And if he loses that first appeal, then he can go to the second appeal, which is the highest court in New York. It's called the New York Court of Appeals. It's a 7-member body. It functions like a Supreme Court in most other states. And if he loses there, he can take it to the U.S. Supreme Court if he can claim that there is some constitutional issue here. So, frankly, you're not going to see Trump in jail any day soon. You're not going to see him paying a fine any day soon. You're not going to see him picking up trash on the freeway any day soon. And in all probability, he'll be dead before this thing gets resolved, as is so often the case with everything that Trump does, because or every crime he's been accused of, because he's got enough money to hire enough lawyers to drag things out forever. Now, will he be able to vote in Florida, which does not allow felons to vote, if he is convicted of a felony? Actually, yes, because Florida allows out-of-state felons, people who have been convicted of a felony out of state, to vote if the state in which they were convicted allows felons to vote. And New York does allow felons, once they're out of jail, to vote. So, hopefully I've answered all your questions and cleared up all the confusion here. Bottom line, and the other point that I would make, and I pretty emphatically, but I want to double down on it. I don't think this is going to make any difference in terms of the election. In fact, NPR this morning was interviewing a bunch of Trump, or talking to a bunch of Trump. And right across the board, they were saying that if he's convicted, enthusiasm for voting for Donald Trump, because they view him as a martyr. It'll help his martyr, the perception of him as a martyr. So there you go. So how do we deal with Alito and Thomas, and what are Georgia Republicans up to? I'll tell you about those stories on the other side of this break. It's 18 minutes past the hour. Stay with us.